Hello, what I will be doing is I will just quickly be going through array and trying to explain what it is and why you would want to use it. Now, what a basic gist, what an array is it's a way to keep a lot of information stored in one place, in essence. It's even more, in essence, a lot of variables put together. Now, to explain it in a different way, is what you can do is you can imagine a street. So if we have a street right over here, say we have a street, and this street, we're going to call this street something. So let's say this street is called uh, uh, Max Street. Okay. Now on this street, there are going to be many houses. So we're going to have house one, house two, house three, house four, house five, and so on and so forth. Now, each one of these houses has a number or an address. So this, for instance, is house one. This is house two, house three, house four, house five. And now in each of these houses lives somebody. And so if you wanted to go and find somebody, what you would need to tell somebody is you need to go to Max Street and go to house one. And that's how you're going to meet somebody. Or go to Max Street and go to house five. And so that is exactly what an array is. In essence, an array, or what an array has, is it has a name. So it has a name. And then what it's going to do is inside these curly brackets, you basically have how many houses you have on the street. So for instance, we can have 6 houses on the street. And one more thing you need to do, because this is computer science, you also need to say what kind of information this is. So it could be an integer, or a float, or a char, or a Boolean. And if you go back to our houses examples, what you can kind of think of that is what type of person lives in this house. Is it a builder? Is it a doctor? Is it an engineer? So that's what you're kind of saying here. It's like what type of person lives in these houses? And that's basically it. That is what an array is. It's just that's the best way of thinking about it, I think. It's just a row, a street that's given by this name, and so then you could know what street name it is, and then it's just a lot of different houses containing information. If we go actually into arrays and see what it is, it's just a lot of variables. So if we have name 6, what that tells me is that I have now 6 different variables which I can find on the name. The way I can find these 6 different variables is like this. So it's name 0, name 1, name 2, name 3, name 4, and so on and so forth. And as you see, each one of these is going to be that different essence, the different piece where you can hold information. And the reason you can kind of think of them as houses, as I said it before, is because again we have our name, which is our street name, and then this is the address. It's like the zero's house, the first house, the second house, and so on and so forth. One quick notice is that if you see the length of the array when you initialize it at 6, but the way the computer actually stores it, it starts from 0 and it goes till 6 minus 1. So even though you have 6 things, it's going to go name 0, name 1, name 2, name 3, name 4, name 5. And that's all there is to know about arrays, in essence. Is that it's you kind of declare what you want to store in these variables, and then you create that array. Before I end the video, just 3 more quick things I want to show you. And the first is basically that there's 2 ways to initialize an array, to create this array. If we go back to houses to create this street, the first is to just say int name 6, and this just makes it so that the computer knows that now you have an array, and there's basically 6 elements in that array. That's what you call it. And what you need to keep in mind is that if you do it like this and you want to use your variables later on, which you created in name 6, before you actually can use them, you need to initialize them, or you need to give them some sort of value. You can't just go up and say, like in the next sentence, I'm going to use 6, because if you can't use that variable if you don't give it a value. And so a really good way to do this is to actually use for loops. And the reason is that you could just say for int I equals to 0, while I is smaller than the length of this array. So we can say length of the array. And then it's going to be I plus plus. We're going to add 1 to each time. And then all we have to do is initialize. So I'm going to say name at I is equal to 0. And this way we put some sort of value into each one of the i's, and then the array will be considered initialized. And just to quickly run through this for loop, just to see, so you can see how it works, what it's going to do is it's going to run through it the first time. And the first time, I is going to be 0. So inside name of 0, inside the address 0, it's going to put the number 0. Then the next time, because we completed the for loop 1, it's going to go to I plus plus. It's going to add 1 to I. I is going to become 1. And then it's going to put 0 into the value of name 1. And that way, all of your all your elements in your array will be initialized. And so that's the first way of kind of using arrays and just initializing. The second way is you can actually initialize them or put a value to them right from the start. And the way you do that is you are going to do name 6, you're going to put the length of it, and then you're going to put curly brackets, and you're going to put exactly what you want in each spot. So for instance, if on the first element of my array, I want a 3, so it's going to be 3. And for instance, I want a 7, I want a negative 25, a 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 6, a 2, and a 1. And there you go. And now, in name 0, I would have 3. In name 1, I would have 7, and so on and so forth. And that's all you really need to know about arrays. Now, just before we leave, what I quickly want to show you is 2D arrays. And actually, there can be an infinite amount of D's arrays. But when we say 2D array, what that means is that, again, if we have int name, it's just introducing kind of a second bracket here. So let's say that we put x and y here. And what this basically means is you can think of it as a checkerboard now. So if we draw a checkerboard, we draw a board, kind of boxes like this. So before, if we had a street, now the reason it's called 2D arrays because now it's 2D. Who would have thought? So just like this, we have a 2D board now. So now what you can kind of think of this is that now instead of just having one street, you have both the length and the width. So for instance, this could be if we had x, this would be x1, x2. If we would go to x, so until you reach x, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then eventually it would be x. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then until y. And basically, in 1, 1 would be stored one value. So let's say it would be a smiley face. Or no, we have integers. So let's say here we have 7. Then at 2, 2 would be 8. And then at 1, 2 would be 6. Or let's just go like this. So for instance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on and so forth. But in essence, then if you wanted to get this value, what you would need to do is you would say, for instance, if I wanted to see what was inside 2, 3, then I would say name 2, 3. And then in our address, we see that, one sec. So so the way it works is it actually goes into the x values first and then the y's. So 2, 3 would actually give me 2, 3. So it would give me what's in here. So that would be 13, 14. So this would give me 14. We go to the second row. Okay, wait, sorry. There's actually multiple ways of thinking of this, funnily enough. You can either think of it as going to x and then y, or to y and then x. I think it's actually first y and then x. Sorry. So in the first, so yeah, I might have confused everybody, but what this means is that in the x, first you take your, so it's more clear actually to think of this as your x's and this as your y's. And so first you're going to have your first row, and in each row you're going to have some number. And then you're going to have your second row, and each one of those some number. So then if I have again 2, 3, what's that telling me is to go to the second row and go to the third spot. And that would give me 9. And then if I wanted to go for name, 5, 4, I would go to the fifth row and the fourth column, and this would be it. This would be the value I'd be looking for. And now I know I've been telling you this, but right before I leave, just one more quick thing is how would you initialize? So for instance, I made a new 2D array, which we would call int name xy. And although you can't do this, I just want to illustrate something. So x, y, but actually you would actually need to put some values in here, like not just variables. But if I wanted to initialize that, then what I would need to do is I would need to do this again with a for loop, just like we've done before. Then I would grab my for loop and I would say for int I equals to 0. Then I would have while I is smaller than x, I plus plus. And what this tells me is that basically I want to be on row x. Close this. I'm going to close the loop. Close. Yeah. But then what you might have noticed is that if I just try to initialize it like this, what I'm going to be doing is I'm only going to be initializing this first row over here. But I have a lot of other rows I need to initialize too. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do something called a nested for loop. So I'm going to put a for loop inside of a for loop. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do for int g equals to 0, while g is smaller than y, g is smaller than y, g plus plus. I'm going to close it. And now I'm going to say name at I, g equals to 0. Let's close. And let's close. So let's just quickly see what this for loop actually does. I kind of alluded to it. So it's going to enter here and it's going to say that I is 0. And that's basically telling us to go to the first row right over here. Then we're going to enter the second for loop and it's going to say, it's going to initialize another g. And it's going to say, well, g is smaller than y, do this. And then each time you're gonna add 1 to g plus plus. But if you go and look at it, what's that basically means is that it's gonna put something into here. It's gonna put 0 into here. Then g is gonna become 1 bigger. It's gonna become 2. So then it would be 1, 2. So then you would put something here. Then you would have 1, 3. So you would put something here. Then you would have at something at 1, 4. So you would put something here. And this would continue until you reach the end of the row. So when g would become y, it would exit out of this for loop, out of this inner for loop, and would go back to the outer. And at the outer, it would add 1 to I. So then our I over here, instead of being 0, it would become 1. And what does I equals 1 mean? Well, that means they're actually entering your second row over here. And then again, it would go all over. So it becomes 0, 0. You would put your values in there, 0, 0, 0. And just like that, what we've done is we're going to eventually initialize all of it because it's gonna keep running through all of the row. Then it's after it goes to the end of the row, it's gonna go to the next row and then go until it reaches all the columns. And it's gonna go to the next row and do all the columns, and so on and so forth until it initializes everything. Hopefully this helps. Hopefully it helps you visualize what an array is, and have a great day.